Evelyn Harper, a mother, a friend, a neighbor, her life snuffed out in an instant. The cause? A violent blow to the head. The weapon? Still unknown. And the person responsible? Her son, Michael Harper, was nowhere to be found. It was the kind of night that felt too still, the sort of night when something sinister could slip into the shadows unnoticed. But in a quiet home on this otherwise ordinary street, something was unfolding that would change everything. A woman was dead. Her son was missing. And what began as a tragedy quickly turned into a mystery far darker than anyone had imagined. Evelyn Harper was known for her kindness, a pillar in the community. She baked pies for the neighborhood kids, volunteered at church. She seemed like the last person who could ever meet such a violent end. And yet, there she was, dead in her own living room. No signs of a break-in, nothing stolen, only the silence of an empty house and the cold, lifeless body of a mother who never saw it coming. When investigators first arrived, they thought it was a break-in gone wrong. But something didn't fit. No forced entry, no valuables taken. This wasn't just some random act of violence. It was personal. Who would want to kill Evelyn? And why? The only one who could answer those questions was her son. But Michael Harper had disappeared without a trace. Michael had been seen just hours before Evelyn's body was discovered. A waitress at a local diner remembered him, but not in the way one would expect. He came in alone, ordered nothing but black coffee, and left without a word. He seemed off, jittery, like he hadn't slept in days, glancing over his shoulder, looking like he was waiting for someone, or running from something. That was the last anyone saw of him. The first step in the investigation was to trace Michael's movements, and what they found sent a chill down their spines. Michael had made repeated phone calls to an overseas number, not just once, but over and over again. And the calls came at odd hours, late at night, early in the morning, a pattern that raised more questions than answers. Who was he talking to? And why couldn't anyone trace the number? Next, they examined Michael's finances. It was a mess. Large, unexplained withdrawals, bills piling up, debt, the foreclosure notice on the house. But still, none of this explained Evelyn's death. None of it made sense. Why kill his mother? Why disappear without a trace? Neighbors described Michael as distant, someone who kept to himself. But no one ever suspected him of violence. He was known for his quiet demeanor, his preference for solitude. And yet, in the days before Evelyn's death, neighbors had overheard arguments, raised voices coming from inside the house. Michael had been seen wandering the streets at night, pale, his eyes wide with a look of fear. Something was changing, something was breaking, but no one knew what. The breakthrough came when they discovered something chilling. Michael's journal, a collection of his darkest thoughts. It wasn't just a diary, it was a confession of abuse. Years of it, physical, emotional, abuse at the hands of someone who should have protected him, his father. And Evelyn, she had known, she had seen it all, but she had stayed silent. She had protected him even at the cost of her own peace. She protected the family's reputation, but in doing so, she buried the truth. Evelyn's silence had been her way of keeping her family intact. But silence doesn't protect anyone, not when the truth is buried so deep. The truth that Michael's father, the man no one ever spoke about, had been the source of the pain. The man who had tormented Michael for years. Evelyn had always been afraid. She'd confided in a few people, but never enough for anyone to understand. She never said the full truth. She was too afraid to admit what was really going on inside her home. And then came the discovery that no one could have predicted. A second body, buried behind the Harper home. At first, investigators thought it was a mistake, maybe an old, forgotten grave. But as the body was uncovered, the truth became undeniable. The case had just turned darker than anyone had imagined. This wasn't just about Evelyn's death anymore. This was about a family secret so deep, so twisted, that no one had even begun to understand it. Michael Harper had killed his own mother to hide a dark secret. And now, as the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, the question remained: what was Michael really trying to protect? The discovery of the second body behind the Harper home had changed everything. What began as a simple investigation into a mother's tragic death had turned into something much darker, far more disturbing. The body they unearthed wasn't just anyone. It was Michael's father, the man who had been a shadow in Michael's life, the man who had tormented him for years. But why had Michael buried him? Why did he hide his father's body in the backyard? Was this the key to understanding why Evelyn was killed? As the investigation unfolded, the pieces began to fit together. Michael's father had been a source of terror in his life. But this wasn't just about the murder of his mother. It was about Michael's history, his past, one filled with pain, suffering, and buried secrets. Evelyn, Michael's mother, had been hiding her own truth. She had known what was happening in their home. She had seen the abuse, but she kept silent. To protect Michael? To protect her family? No one could say, but the consequences of that silence would prove deadly. As detectives dug deeper into the Harper family's past, they found disturbing evidence. Michael's father wasn't just an abuser. He had been a controlling figure, a man who had instilled fear into everyone around him. Evelyn had tried to protect Michael, but in her silence, she had allowed the abuse to continue. Michael's father had been a monster, but so had Michael. The lines between victim and perpetrator blurred as the story began to unfold. The truth was starting to surface, but it was still incomplete. Michael had killed his father, but why? What pushed him to this point? Was it a desire for revenge? Was it the years of abuse finally taking their toll? Or was it something more? And then, a new lead emerged. A hidden photograph from Michael's childhood. A photo of him and his father. The expression on Michael's face in that picture was the look of a child trapped in a nightmare. A nightmare that had never stopped haunting him. In that photograph, Michael's father was holding something, a weapon, a gun. And that image, that one terrifying detail, unlocked a painful memory. A memory of fear so deep, it could never be erased. Michael's father had used the gun as a threat, as a means of control, as a way to keep Michael in line, to keep him scared. The fear Michael lived with as a child was unimaginable. But no one had known. No one had seen it. But there was more. There were other photos, other memories hidden in plain sight. Michael had been living with this fear for years, carrying the burden of his father's abuse in secret. But why did it all come to a head now? Why kill his mother? Why finally end his father's life? The truth was buried deeper than anyone could have expected. And as the investigation continued, a shocking discovery would reveal that Michael wasn't the only one hiding a secret. The second body wasn't the last secret Michael had buried. There was another truth, hidden even deeper. One that Michael couldn't keep hidden anymore. And as the police closed in, they realized that the final pieces of the puzzle were about to fall into place. But Michael had disappeared. He was gone. And the investigation was left hanging in the balance. There was someone else. Someone who had been watching from the shadows. Someone who knew the truth. And their role in this dark family secret was about to be revealed. The investigation had dragged on for weeks. The pieces of the puzzle were scattered across the Harper home, each one pointing toward Michael. But still, the final question remained unanswered. Why did he do it? What had driven him to murder his own mother, bury his father, and vanish without a trace? The truth had been buried in the shadows for too long. But now, as the sun rose over the Harper house, it seemed the final piece of the story was about to be revealed. Michael had killed his father, a man who had spent years torturing him, manipulating him. But it wasn't just that. It was the years of abuse, of fear, of silence. It was a secret Michael couldn't carry any longer. A secret his mother had kept hidden from the world. A secret that had poisoned their entire family. But Evelyn's death, her murder, had been the tipping point. Michael had snapped. And when the weight of his own trauma became too much to bear, he had done what he felt he had to do. As the investigation continued, a breakthrough came from an unlikely source. Someone who had known Michael far better than anyone else. A friend from his past. a person who had seen the cracks in his demeanor long before Evelyn's death. This person had heard things, confessions, whispered admissions, and tales of a childhood that no one should ever have to endure. And in a final twist, they came forward, revealing what had really happened. The truth that had been buried in Michael's silence. The breakthrough came when we found Michael's final confession, written just before he disappeared. It was an admission of guilt, yes, but it was also a desperate cry for help. A cry that had been silenced for far too long. Michael didn't kill his mother out of malice. He killed her to protect her, to shield her from the truth that had nearly destroyed him. The truth about his father's abuse, and about a secret that had gone unnoticed by everyone else. As a child, Michael had been trapped in a house of fear. His father had threatened him, manipulated him, and controlled him in ways no child should ever have to endure. And when Michael grew older, the memories never faded. They only became more vivid, more terrifying. His father's presence was a constant shadow in his life. And when he killed him, Michael thought he could escape it. But when Evelyn found out, when she discovered the truth, it shattered everything. She had been protecting him, yes, but in the end, she had protected the wrong person. It was only a matter of time before we found him. Michael had been running, hiding, trying to escape the truth he had been carrying for so long. But when we found him, it was clear. The truth was far heavier than any punishment he could face. He had killed his mother, not because he hated her, but because he loved her too much. He couldn't let her live with the horrors that had been hidden in their home for so long. Michael Harper was arrested that day. The charges were clear. The murder of his mother, Evelyn Harper. But there was more. There were layers of pain, of trauma, that no court could ever truly understand. And while justice would be served, it would never undo the damage that had been done. Michael's story was a tragedy of silence, of fear, of a family torn apart by secrets too dark to confront. And in the end, it was the truth, the painful, brutal truth, that finally caught up with him. Michael Harper's story is one of pain, of secrets that festered for too long. It's a story of a son who killed to protect his mother, and in doing so, destroyed everything they had built together. But the truth has a way of coming to light, no matter how deep it's buried. And in the end, it was the truth that set them free, but not without a price. Thank you for joining us in this journey through one of the darkest secrets ever hidden in plain sight. But Michael Harper's story isn't over. It's a reminder that the truth always finds its way to the surface, no matter how deep it's buried. If you found this case compelling, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future investigations. What other true crime stories do you think we should dive into next? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And remember, the truth is out there, waiting to be discovered.